This is Blanche, Carreen. And from this picture, Blanche looks like any other person. But behind that smile, there's something dark. Blanche has a TikTok page, and this is her very first video, and it's quite unusual. Watching this TikTok, we can see a still image of Blanche entering through a door, with the caption, "Practicing running out of the house before Theo James gets me. He admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse." We hear some creepy music playing, and towards the middle the beat changes, and we can then hear what appears to sound like a man speaking. I tried reversing the sound of the voice, but it didn't sound any better reversed, so I have no idea what's being said here. For those of you who don't know, Theo James is an actor who's in popular movies and TV shows, such as Divergent, or Allegiant, or The White Lotus. And he's in the new Stephen King movie, The Monkey. Sick movie. So why does Blanche claim that Theo James is stalking her and is a cannibal? And why are all of her TikToks like this? Come with me while we explore these things. Standing in silence before Theo James gets me. He admitted to being a cannibal. I fear for the lives of my family. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. One last smile before Theo James gets me. He has admitted to being a cannibal and is out to get my family. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. Why has nobody talked about how Theo James admitted to being a cannibal? I finally got glasses so I can see when Theo James tries to eat my family, and so I can protect them. He admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. Yesterday I tried on disguises, so did my children, so that Theo James would not be able to recognize us and eat us. He has admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. Me without my stalker that wants to eat me and my family and turn us into a 5-course meal. Me with him. This flips back and forth over and over again, unexplainably. The rest of the TikToks are between 1 and 5 minutes long, usually just repeating the exact same pictures back and forth. I've cut them short for the sake of my video. My kids forced me to take off my disguise so that Theo James wouldn't recognize me and eat me. My life is ruined, and now Theo James may turn my family into a meal. He has admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. As we look at this picture, halfway through the TikToks, it seems like she is becoming more and more unhinged. Not just in the way that she is wording things, but the way that she is looking at the camera. The smile is looking more uncanny than ever. As I set my phone down to take what I thought would be the last picture of me, I could hear Theo James breathing outside my window, examining every detail of my house so he can break in and eat my family and I. He has admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. I had always wanted to be buried in this dress that my mother gave me before her passing, but the possibility of that is gone because Theo James will eat me and my family. There will be nothing left of me to bury. He has admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. One thing people always notice about me is that I always have a big smile on my face, although Theo James is watching all of my moves meticulously through my window so he can plan on eating my family and I. He is admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. Fearing the day that Theo James breaks into my 3-bedroom house and eats my family and I would come soon, I put on my nurse uniform one last time to reminisce the years when I worked as an emergency room nurse. I will never get to experience what being a nurse feels like again because he is after me. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. I no longer feel at home due to Theo James being outside my porch every day waiting for the perfect moment to capture my family and I to eat us. So I removed all of my furniture. He has admitted to being a cannibal. All I can do is caress my 20-year-old blind dog. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. I find it interesting that we've come this far, and now the story is expanding even further, as we can see all of the furniture has been removed from her house behind her. To me, this level of progression shows me that she's becoming more and more scared. On this beautiful sunny day, I made the effort to take my dog out for a walk. That is until I heard the footsteps of Theo James walking towards us, attempted to grab us. He wanted to eat my dog and I took his picture after running inside my 3-bedroom home, and I could hear Theo James knocking loudly over and over, yet I still displayed my big, beautiful smile. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. I find it extremely interesting that throughout this entire thing, she keeps giving more and more details, and keeps repeating certain details, like how she lives in a 3-bedroom home. It's very interesting to hear somebody talk about what kind of home they live in when they're fearing about being stalked in the first place. Today I went to my good friend Lori's wedding. When I heard Theo James walking towards me, trying to eat me and the guests, I ran home as fast as I could and warned everybody at the wedding about Theo James. I made it home safely, but I know he will be banging on my door soon, attempting to eat my children and I. He has admitted to being a cannibal. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. Today my ex-husband took away both of my children because he believed that I am mentally unstable. When I told him that Theo James was going to break into my house and eat my children and I, he has admitted to being a cannibal. I have been deemed mentally stable by many psychiatrists over the years, and I am perfectly fine. I now have to go through this journey alone. I am Blanche Carreen, a retired nurse. And this is the final TikTok that has been made to this point, and I'm not sure if more TikToks will be made after this. She states that her ex-husband took away their children because he believes she is mentally unstable, and he's not the only one. Plenty of the comments talk about how unstable this lady must be. Plenty of the comments also talk about how they would love to be eaten by Theo James. I think it's safe to assume that the actor Theo James is definitely not stalking this woman. If anything was happening, it would be her stalking him. When coming across this TikTok page, my first thought was that it was some type of analog horror or some type of web series horror that somebody was trying to make, and they were just taking some random lady's photos and slapping them on some creepy music with some text. However, looking into this, I reverse image searched and nothing came up with her images, no social medias for her name either. Not being able to find her pictures across any website really leads me to believe that this is actually this lady being crazy, or the creator of this has to have dug so deep to find the most obscure pictures of a woman posing like this, and posing inside of an empty house, or maybe they just found the pictures and wrote the story around it. But what begs a better question is why they're so adamant about Theo James admitting that he's a cannibal. Doing a quick Google, the AI reveals that there is no information suggesting that Theo James has any connection to cannibalism, and then talks about his acting roles. Searching her name, she doesn't even come up as the top post. Instead, it's from a Threads post that we will come back to later. But then after that, it is just her TikTok posts, and then a bunch of stuff about Armie Hammer, which we will also come back to later. This left me scratching my head. Why is somebody so adamant about Theo James being a cannibal? I couldn't even find an inside joke or a meme about this. And as I dug and I dug, I did come across this podcast. The podcast is called Table Manners, where they eat food and talk to their guests. Theo James was featured on this podcast. However, I listened to the entire 53-minute episode, and not once did Theo James talk about cannibalism or that he is a cannibal. And that was it. That was what I found about Theo James being a cannibal. That was until I got really frustrated and dug until I found this. From the channel, still watching Netflix with 9 million subscribers. The title? Theo James is Gonna Eat You. 9,866 views. And this is merely a YouTube short. I tried to find the longer interview from where this short is from, but I'm not sure that that actually exists. But here it is.
What was your favorite stunt scene in the Gentleman series? Episode 2, Edward goes to Jethro's apartment to retrieve his passport. The apartment's supposed to be empty, but soon he realizes there is a dangerous man waiting for him. What ensues is a wild, slightly funny fight scene. Eddie doesn't want to fight, and he's trying to survive, and he's not really that tough, but when you're faced with death, you can claw your way through a fight scene. And there was one line that didn't make it into the cut, but I loved it, when the guy turns around and he looks at Eddie, who's a kind of posh guy, out of his depth in this criminal underworld, and he says, "I'm gonna eat you." Eat, that was the word, but I enjoyed that line.
And there it is. That's the closest we ever get to hearing Theo James admit to being a cannibal. The fact that he said he liked a line in a movie where a guy says, "I'm gonna eat you." And now we have all of these mysterious TikToks of somebody who is clearly under mental distress, who thinks they're getting stalked by a famous actor. In reality, I do think it is just somebody making a joke. The weirdest question is, where did they get these pictures from? Unless this lady is a diehard fan of Theo James and really likes internet mysteries and decided this would be entertaining to do. Strange enough, this is not the only case of this. After finding this TikTok page and doing some research, I came across a Threads post where somebody posted a DM they got from somebody else. The person posts saying they woke up to these DMs. The DMs read, "You have worked with people who are trying to kill me and my son, and that ends you. Or maybe just me, but not my son, but all that ends you. Because you have worked with people who are eating my son." Now it could be that they mean something different here, but it sure does sound like they think people are eating their son. And then somebody comments how this is similar to Blanche. And Oldeways, the poster of these DMs, says that's not her, but it's the same energy. You can easily find out that Oldeways is a professional witch and psychic medium. So this is another semi-famous person who is being claimed to be a cannibal, or at least working with people who are cannibals. And this brings us to our connection with Armie Hammer, someone who apparently admitted to being a cannibal. And in these messages that are super unhinged, he says, "I am 100% a cannibal." That one is crazy because he is just coming out and saying it, while the other ones, people are speculating that other people are cannibals. Although Armie Hammer has defended himself amongst these allegations.
The unhealthiness in my life bled into everything. My sleep habits, my eating, the way I engaged with people, it was pervasive.
The Armie Hammer thing really does sound like him just being unhinged. While the first two things that I talked about were people who think that their kids are being eaten by cannibals. And while I think this is kind of a crazy thing to be worried of in modern day, this type of thing is definitely not that abnormal, as it even has its own Wikipedia page. Child cannibalism has its entire own Wikipedia page because of how popular it's been throughout history. Whether it was the Soviet Union during terrible famished times when they needed things to eat and they would just eat their children, or whether it was in China, where there was a tradition where Chinese people would trade each other's kids to eat so that they were not having to eat family members, or whether it's in Greek mythology where gods would eat their own children. Eating children has been around for a long time, so it is kind of crazy when you run into a rabbit hole where somebody thinks that their child is going to be eaten. This is definitely one of the strangest things I've seen on TikTok, and one of the most bizarre rabbit holes I've ever gone down for a video. Hey, thanks for watching. If you guys wouldn't mind, go checking out the Reddit, because the Reddit is growing very slowly, but it is still pretty fun over there. So go check it out, and don't forget to like this video, of course. See ya!